What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. We are here to recap Survivor 48, Episode 5, and it is Wednesday night, and we haven't done this at all. So this is great to get some fresh takes on before seeing what anyone else thinks about the episode and get to just talk about a crazy emotional episode for some. What were your thoughts, Joel?
Yeah, definitely one of the most emotional episodes probably of Survivor ever. I mean, Jeff was crying, you know?
Yeah.
I was getting emotional. My girlfriend, she was crying. It was pretty surreal to see it happen. Obviously we built up to this, but great episode. And even outside of like the Eva moment, which we'll get to, like the vote out was emotional. We got to see a lot of emotional decisions. And I think this was just an overall, like, kind of keeping in line with 48. Like, this is just every episode's been building. This one, obviously, not as explosive as last one, but like, still very good. And we got to see a lot of great moments. So, what did you think?
Yeah, I loved it. Kind of top to bottom, there's a lot of great moments in the episode. We could start out with just like the very beginning, when we came back from, Vula's tribal council, and it seemed like Shine and Joe were pretty upset about what went down. But it was really cool to see, Kyle and Camilla make it. And their alliance is still kind of hidden, which I'm a little surprised by. Like that they didn't really catch, that they're closer than they thought they were. But I really liked how um I guess it was the next morning when they're, talking about, or I guess it was after the reward challenge, wasn't it? When they were, all sharing about like
Yeah.
their families' backgrounds and stuff. And that kind of all bonded the four of them. So like that's kind of a crazy power alliance that we have now. And since we saw in the preview for next week that, drop your buffs, we're going to Mergatory at least. We'll have them all four work together and see what happens there. And it's really interesting too, because I feel like at this point, they're forced to pull in, Eva and possibly Star too, just because of like that was also a crazy moment. Like I'm kind of jumping around the episode now. Like I was starting at the beginning, but um talk about the Star moment too, which was crazy.
Yeah, we see obviously a lot of, if I had to define this episode, it's just like emotion. Everyone's playing emotional. We do see strategy, of course, but like almost everything is like based off an emotional decision. And funny enough, the one strategical decision of the episode with Bianca ended up costing her, which I think is a very interesting way of presenting an episode. But I think it's very interesting because we've seen in Survivor where like the swap tribe becomes like the main alliance. Like we saw that in Cagayan, that like it wasn't the original three, it was the
Right.
original like two that eventually like went on to like obviously make a very explosive merge episode.
Yeah.
But
Top five, baby.
top five. And I think right now this is very interesting because we don't see it. Obviously, we don't see swaps in the new era, but this is a really good way of weaponizing it, of using old tech in a new way of that, hey, like we're going into this. And it's kind of a perfect situation because we talked about it a little, but even David had this connection. They slot right into that four. That's already six. That's nearly the majority. And we already see Mitch talk about the like how a tribe that with smaller numbers is a threat. Like I think Mitch and Chrissy could slot right in there. And so I can definitely see this becoming one of those 42 kind of seasons, but actually go all the way of like the big players all get together and try to wipe out the smaller ones first. And I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, beginning we do see that Kyle and Camilla play this off very well. They know it
Yeah.
as well.
I thought, yeah, that was really well done from them. Like we already kind of talked about that a lot from the last episode, just how well they played it in general. But going forward, them as a four, and then like you were saying, like it's looking like all the bigger guys and girls, like the main characters, I guess, are getting together, and trying to take out some of the weaker players, which I think is really interesting. I was thinking about that, like would I want that to be my strategy when going on Survivor? Like if I ever went to go, it's like, would I want to, try to just kind of slide under, or, if people see me as a target, or, I'd probably want to align with all the meat shields and like actually keep them. And I know that's been tried a bunch, but it's never really succeeded. So it'd be interesting to see if that would actually be a possibility if there's all the meat shields get together and stay together. Um,
Yeah.
which I think was like in 46 that Q was trying to do with the Six Alliance. That's
And we
terrible.
see that that was very rocky.
Yeah,
But obviously in Australian Survivor, we see that that happens like not like a ton, but it happens a good bit and it works. And obviously they're kind of more at an old school style of season. But we can see now that like these mega alliances that start at the beginning usually don't last. And from personality reasons with Q or just like the nature of the game with in 42. But I think like going forward, this could definitely work, especially with a lot of these guys being like pretty like strong leaders. Like in Palau, we see that like if you have basically your tribe there, it doesn't matter because you can have
right.
like the people who can lead you perfectly. And I think immunities will come into big play this season. But speaking of immunities, I think we should talk about this one
Yeah, it was a
because yeah,
really good challenge just to see like I mean, challenge itself was kind of basic, but it was a really cool moment to see, Eva struggle a lot and then finally succeed and um finish that, table maze, I guess you'd call it. I don't, it wasn't really much of a maze. It was just like a table challenge with the ball. And it was cool just to see um like the moment that made me the most emotional was like Joe going over to comfort her because like they had that connection and that was already established really well previously. And so when Jeff was like, Joe, go ahead and go over and comfort her, that was like made me emotional, made a lot of people that I was in the room with emotional too. So that was just like a really cool moment to see. And then her just opening up after that, which I feel like is kind of the natural thing to do at that point because it's just like um, that's kind of already clear that that she's struggling, but being able to actually be forthright about it. I don't think it really affected the game itself very much. It was just an outside of the game moment, and I think that's good for Survivor too. And I like we didn't hear anything about like, oh no, we should get rid of Joe, because I'm worried about Joe now because he's really close with Eva. Like, though this is a separate thing entirely. So I thought that was really cool to see as well that people didn't really take it the wrong way, and actually treated that moment with respect. And so that was really cool to watch.
no, I 100% I agree. And keeping in line, this challenge also was very back and forth throughout the whole thing. It was low-key a very like complicated one.
Yeah,
Like people were going over and under, like digging up stuff. Like I didn't doing the bob and weave. And you can kind of tell that I guess the orange tribe is just like kind of physically like not like as capable as the other ones. Which is like this was a very physical challenge, which obviously benefited green a lot, and for the most part, purple. But yeah, coming at the end of it, we got to see a lot of like doing the thing. People were going like fast. I
yeah.
was watching. I was like,
They're
whoa,
just
pop,
like
pop.
yeah, tilting it and going. That was crazy. A lot of people got it like really quickly too. So
Yeah,
it was cool to watch. And then after that, going to the Star moment, which was crazy. Like Star was really hyping up Eva and for some reason that like really connected with Star and that kind of made Star want to work with Eva. So I thought that was really cool too. And then she was like, "Hey, I have an idol." And Eva was like, "No way." I had no idea. That's
I
crazy.
I was like, first off, very shocked, and like, uh, obviously, I'm in the new era. It's just like you might as well just hand everyone an idol. Like, there's no secrets, there's no nothing. But it is crazy to see these two who were like, battling the whole time. Like, Eva, once she finally opened up, like, got that connection, which I think is great. I do appreciate how much like care the show gave to that moment between her and Joe. And I think overall, this is one of the better edited episodes in the history of Survivor, I would argue, because they had a lot to get through. Like, we had a
Right.
reward challenge.
Oh, yeah,
And
we forgot about the reward challenge too.
yeah, like first off, it was great to see the Mary say rivalry come back, but going to the star moment, a lot of things. I think that did build trust with Eva, and I wonder if that could get to Star like a little bit farther. But I could see her being consensus boot. But it also basically gives Joe an idol as well. And I think a little ding on David, being like, "Hey, like I got to be the one to figure it out, just for Eva to do it." But also, what was it? It was like silent or something.
Silent,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like I felt like I would have guessed that if I knew, like, there's only so many you can do,
I
and
think
you've been up
there's
there for like 8 days.
I think that combination of letters is known for having like there's like a different one for each letter, I guess, if that makes sense. Like
Oh, is it just like a lot of them?
each start like there's a word for each starting letter. So like
Oh,
inlets, enlist, silent, listen. I don't remember all the other ones, but like it's kind of like a known six letter combination thing. So
interesting.
I
I didn't know.
that's what I heard. And they all three had the same letters in different words. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, but anyways, I think obviously Eva's moment is like the moment of the episode, and we
Right.
didn't get too much time at Tribal, but going back to like the theme of emotion, we get to see Say be emotional per usual, and I think it's such an interesting thing where like there's times where she's like very strategic and like very blunt and
Yeah,
very cold, but there's also times where like you can tell it's like she's just emotional
right.
and she just doesn't like Chrissy. And I thought this was like Chrissy was done. I thought this was just
Really?
like at first I was like, oh, this is like the Chrissy boot, and then it kept going, and I'm like, oh, it has to be Say.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. Like it was like getting to it, and I was like, then no way did it cross my mind that they were voting for Bianca. So that was like, I think it jump scared literally everyone watching. It was like, there's no way.
Yeah, once I saw that vote, I was like,
I was like, oh, I guess when I saw the first one for Bianca, I was like, oh, I guess Cedric just didn't want to get his hands dirty and vote out Say, whatever. And then I saw the second one, I was like,
oh,
how often do they do that? Where they don't show like that conversation?
very rare, but I
Very
love it.
rare. So that was really interesting for me. Like we weren't even in on that boat at all. So that was
Yeah.
interesting. I'm curious to see what will happen next week, like post tribal, debrief and see like what went down. Why did Christine not tell Mitch about that plan
I
either? Like,
um I believe that my girlfriend pointed it out, but they brought up the idea of like the glance of like, and that it. And you can see in the episode they cut to it very briefly, but I think Bianca gets up and they look at each other and go like, and I
mhm.
think it could have been like at tribal, like, and I that's my prediction, but like Caleb, if you're in this spot, right, where 2-2, you don't have a vote, like I think her trying to pin both sides is like a
There's
good idea,
No,
but you got
I don't think
this
so at
what?
all. Like if you're pitting them on both sides, what if it does end up in a deadlock situation, Like they can't revote for like they can't all just like switch the revote and all vote for Bianca, you either go one way or the other. So at least there's the chance of like, Cedric possibly flipping, to get Say out after it's an initial tie. But then you don't trust her going forward at all. And so if it's not that, then you go to rocks, and there's a solid chance that she would draw a rock at that point because she would be one of the eligible people. She wouldn't be one of the people that are safe, from the tie. So like it's kind of a lose-lose situation for her. I think when we were watching the episode, I think the best idea that I had that she could have navigated the situation would be to just go to Cedric and be like, "Hey, I'm voting for Say. Them two are voting for Say. Probably be in your best interest just for vote for Say as well. Unless you want to be like on the wrong side of the votes. Like that's what we're doing. And then move on from there. And, think Cedric would be smart enough in that situation to just cut his losses and vote out Say. Um, but, at the same time, I really don't think that voting out Bianca was in Cedric's best interest either. So, like, that's something that's really interesting to me as well. Because, like, when Bianca did confess to him that information that she didn't have a vote, I don't know if I would turn around and be like, okay, I'm voting for you because you lied to me this whole time until now. I'm like, oh, you actually trust me. You're the only one that is giving me this information. You're like, I'm the only person that is hearing that from you. So I'm going to trust you. He knows he verbalized that Say is not going to be an ally going forward. He's just something that she's just someone that he can trust for now. So why not just vote out Say and then replace her with Bianca, and then they both have a good alliance going forward. Because it seems like Bianca really wanted to work with him, and I don't know what I would do differently from Bianca, except for what I just laid out there. But at the same time, like this is a really bad move for Cedric, in my opinion.
I agree. And like I think if you're Bianca, you're just like unbelievably screwed. Because you can't tell anyone because because if you're like, hey Chrissy, like I don't have a vote, then they know they're in a deadlock and they know there's a shot they're going to rocks.
And they're just like, why not we all
Okay.
just vote out her?
We're
Yeah,
like, we're one away from a merge. Why don't we just take you out? We already were planning on taking a loggy out. And so she knows that, and I think she just like I understand the rationale of being like last second be like, hey, like, I don't have a vote. It's in your best interest, or else we're going to rocks. Where like you're like, oh, he doesn't have time to tell anyone. Like I get that, but like obviously you can tell people at tribal. There's ways around it, and I obviously it's not a great move on Cedric's part. I fully agree. I get the idea of like, yeah, like now you have Chrissy as an ally, kinda, but like Mitch didn't vote with you. This is like the most weird voting I've ever seen. And this is like the final five of 45, like where you're like, what is happening?
right.
And I don't know. I don't think anyone's really playing. Like, I don't think anyone played that round well.
Because
Maybe Chrissy,
how
which
did
I
yeah,
believe I'm
maybe
saying.
Chrissy, like how did Mitch not get on the right side of the vote there? You're like that's like you were saying like maybe they just did the glance thing, but like if that was, if they did talk about it previously, if Cedric went up to Chrissy and was like, hey, Bianca told me like she didn't have a vote, and so let's just vote her out. Why wouldn't he tell Say? Why wouldn't Chrissy tell Mitch? Like I have a lot of questions. I don't really know how this shook up
I
at
do as
all.
well. And it is kind of like if you look at this on paper, like Cedric had everyone vote for each other. Well, he didn't have it like him himself, but like he basically had the situation where like everyone just so happened to be voting for each other. I get the sole vote, and you take out Bianca, which I feel like is like a lateral move in the sense that like, yeah, sure, now Loggy's down to four, but also you just gave the Orange Tribe like all their numbers essentially.
Yeah,
Like they just made the merge, what, with six? Am I miscounting? I
Siva,
believe,
like original Siva.
yeah,
Yeah, they have all theirs going in. Uh,
that's that's not good. Where like, yeah, obviously like they're the big target, whatever. You can maybe work with Loggy, but like you're really banking on a 7-6 in the
yeah,
long term. But even in short term, like voting out Say would like really diminish the fact that like they have pointed out that a small tribe like this could do damage because it has. We've seen it like all
right.
throughout the new era that it was like basically a hack to win.
Yeah.
And now they're pointing it out to you. You just kept Say again. And I
Hmm.
get she's a shield, but she's a shield for like maybe the first round. And she's smart enough to cut you before you cut her.
Yeah,
Because she would have cut Cedric so fast in that it
exactly.
and it all comes down to him making a wrong choice of taking her instead of Justin. But overall, Cedric, my go winner pick. No. Um, he's like in such a weird player where he's like constantly in the spot of like, I make the decision, but he's like the worst
And
person
then
possible.
yeah, he's the worst person to make the decision. Like, I don't know how he keeps ending up with that power and then also going forward and making the wrong decision. Like, he has no one right now, like, say he's not an ally, she'll, take him out, next chance he has. Like, if Justin was here, he'd be an ally. If he stuck with Bianca, she'd be an ally. Like, and he's just getting rid of him. I don't know what's going on. Um, but to switch from that, I want to go back to like near the beginning with the Say and Mary conflict at the end of the reward challenge because that was a really funny moment for me.
Yeah, I think that was hilarious to see it happen across tribal. And I feel like Say's thing of like, oh, I deserve a break, you know? Like, first off, this was like the least physical challenge they could
Right.
have possibly. It was literally bouncing a ball off a net.
Yeah.
And like, it's whatever. Like, I could probably make that
Hmm.
with a spike ball net. And she was like, "Oh, I needed a break." And then they lose, and then Mary's like excited because she like won something.
Hmm.
And first off, it was a great reward, like mostly because I'm a coffee guy, but whatever.
Yeah.
But
That was also a really funny reward as well, seeing David get his milk. That
oh,
was
that
a
was
great moment.
so just him just being like so happy.
Yeah, and like all the music swelling and stuff. It was a funny moment.
Yeah, I am glad Eva kind of brought up like Charity. I feel like Charity's being genuine. But we've seen a lot that she might be getting like a Venus edit where like, you know what I mean? Like she's pumping herself up and everything, but like her like it's not really like what she's doing. It's more like her personality and people like viewing her in the way where like Eva's like, yeah, I don't have social skills, but like, she seems very fake. And then she's talking, and even I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound very like natural to say, like take in this moment, guys. And it's like I'm just drinking milk. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing deeper about it. And I get that it's like a very emotional moment for her, but she also didn't compete in the challenge, so I don't know why. But overall, I think that whole interaction was hilarious. And I just hope somehow like they just make it super deep in the end and we get like an all-time rivalry.
Yeah, I know. It'll be a really good moment. It's like at this point in the new era, we have a good amount of data to go from at this point, because we have, 7 seasons. And so at this point, like I'm looking at who's the biggest threat to me. And this is going a little bit back to what we talked about a second earlier about, like the big meat shield alliance going into the merge, what it looks like is previewed for next week. But being able to take, um, the girls like Mary and um who else? Camilla. I think those two are like who I would see, if I was like myself, if I was playing with all these people, like those would be the scariest people that were left for me. Um, at least in my from my perspective. So like that's really interesting to see going forward, like what people do with them too, because like those two, like they're they're like the archetype to win in the new era, and they had such a good they've both had really good edits, like so like I think they're definitely worth watching going forward.
I could um I think for like the most part, we see in like the new era that like the people that you don't expect to win.
Oh, it froze. Oh,
There you
sorry guys, it froze for a bit. It's you said the people that don't expect to win.
Yeah, I think like if you like looked at this each of the new era season, you're like, oh, like these guys are gonna make it to the end. They
Right.
hardly ever do. And even the people that look like great Survivor players, like they get cut at 5 or 6. Like no one gets to the very, very end.
Right.
And I just totally see a world where like Camilla gets to the end with Kyle or something. Just like they cut Kyle at 5. She gets to the end, takes all the credit. Mo well deserved credit, I should say, and wins the game. And I could see like Joe, for example, being like the Jesse almost, like the guy who just falls short.
Hmm.
And I really hope someone big wins it. Like I really like the fact that pretty much every season so far we've had like a very different winner from the previous one.
Yeah.
And as cool as it would be to like see someone like challenge beast their way to the end like Rachel, it'd also be cool to see someone just be like the guy who just like keeps everyone together and just like bulldozes and like no one can break them. And because we haven't really seen that since like what, four, 45, but even then like they broke at like the final 7.
Yeah.
Like
I'm thinking like worlds apart, like Mike Holloway, like
yeah,
bulldozing to the end. Or I guess you could call Ben too, with all the idols, but
I agree.
yeah.
It'd be cool to
Um
see.
yeah. I feel like with that we could talk a little bit about like Survivor 50 and speculation with what we have on that.
Yes. I would say Survivor 50 right now. I'm pretty obviously very hyped. I think there's going to be a lot from 48. Jeff clearly loves this cast. If I had to guess, like, just who, like, what seasons will have the most. I think 46 and 48 are gonna have like by far the most. Because I think Charlie, Q, Venus, you're this season you're probably gonna have like Camilla, Joe, maybe Eva. Like you have a lot of options
Yeah.
already from the season. And I don't think it'll be too new era focus. I think maybe 50, maybe 40% will be. But I think we're gonna go a lot of old school. And I hope they do a thing where like if it's like in the hands of the fans, like
Mhm.
Natalie Bolton comes back. Like these people that are like,
John Rector.
yeah, like the people that like we have been clamoring
Right.
for back. Which I think would be like very fitting and it'd be very cool for them to be like, okay, here, fine. Like,
We'll give you all your favorites. Yeah.
yeah, here they are. Let them go.
Visepia. We want Visepia.
Do we?
I
I
do.
would rather I would rather have Sean Rector. Um, fun fact, everyone, I can confidently say Mike Holloway will not be on 50. I got the source. Mostly because he tweeted something before Lent, and I was like, "Hey, I know you're on Survivor 50," and he was like, "No." I was like,
That's
"Okay."
funny.
So he's not on. I wish he was. One of my favorite stories in the history of Survivor. But I don't think winners are going to be on this season. But who's like a really underdog pick for you? Like someone
To
like
get back on,
yeah, someone like your personal fave.
my personal fave. Hmm, that's a good question. I don't think about this a lot, but I'd always love to see Dom from Ghost Island. Like he's one of my favorites, and I feel like at this point, like he's like flying under the radar a bit more. And so I'd love to see him back, even though it may or may not happen. Also, Lauren O'Connell from Edge of Extinction. She was super underrated in my opinion. I think she was like 21 when she played too. Um,
Really?
yeah, something like that. She was pretty young, like 21, 22. So it'd be cool to see her. Like it's been a while at this point, and like it'll be like 6 years before she would go back out, 6, 7 years. So it'd be interesting to see like where she's at. And I thought she had a really good game in Edge of Extinction, so I'd love to see her come back again. Um, those are like I really want to make sure they focus on those 30 seasons that haven't been touched very much. But the super fan in me also wants to see some of these classic players return. Like wouldn't it be insane if like Johnny Fairplay came back on 50? Like that would be just be the most insane thing ever.
I think there might be a shot. I doubt it,
Yeah.
but it'd be really cool to see like someone. I don't think like for example, I don't think like Cherie
Right.
be on, and mostly because I believe she's going to be on the Australian Survivor,
Hmm.
and if I think that one's shorter, but like Australian Survivor in general is like very physical, and I doubt you'd want to do that back to back.
Yeah.
Uh, but I would love to see like Todd,
Yeah,
like
that'd be a great pick.
one of these like winners like Earl Cole, like
Earl would be awesome too.
bring back Bob.
Bring back Bob.
Right. No,
Natalie White would go crazy.
that'd be such an interesting story. I cannot lie. That would be like everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, she beat Russell. What if she wins again?"
Yeah, that'd be insane. But
No,
I
where
feel
where
like from what I've seen though, it seems like they're not as much trending on the new era as I thought they would be with their casting. And there's been a couple posts lately from like Jesse and from Carolyn that both kind of said that they're not coming on 50. Like they got cut. Like they're kind of cryptic messages, but it alluded to that they weren't coming on 50, which seemed really interesting to me. Um, and I'm not sure
have
if
to be
there's
Fox
validity to that or they're just throwing people off the trail. Because like if they're not gonna be on 50 from the new era, like who is? Like,
on it.
no, please. Rome. You know,
He's trying.
I know. He's trying to take Jeff's job.
Yeah. Hey, shout out Once Upon an Island. I listened to the podcast. I know Rome's on there trying.
That's funny. But I will say I want to talk a little bit about like predictions for next week and what you think about that.
Yeah, obviously marriage. If we were following the trend of literally every of like the past 7 seasons, minus 41, um, we're looking at probably like a 12-1 vote here. Probably gonna be on Star, maybe Chrissy. it really doesn't matter. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I think it'll all be on Say because it'll be very similar to last season in my opinion. Just because I do think it'll be a consensus vote. And like with Rome, we had that the Rome edit where everyone thought like where Rome thought he was good with everyone, but the edit was dogging on him the whole episode, which was a lot of fun. But I don't think we'll see the same thing. But I think Say's dug her grave with a lot of people, and even like what we saw with the reward challenge, the winning tribe, they were like she's a sore loser, like
Yeah,
we don't want to listen to her. So I think like everyone's slowly starting to like kind of all turn on her. And it'll result in her going home finally. But
I agree.
she's kind of overstayed her welcome, at this point. Like, she should have gone home both tonight and a couple weeks ago. So like
I honestly like the fact that she's here is just one of the greatest joys of this
I know
season.
it's crazy. It's providing a lot more entertainment. So
Yeah, she's like if Rome, like the perfected version of Rome in my mind, where she's like not like actually being like really mean.
right.
But I do think for like people watching, if you want to figure out like who the winner is, the merge is like an extremely important
Yeah,
episode for that.
absolutely.
Where like from that point on, like pretty much every winner has had like a pre-merge, like
Right.
something bad happen.
Hmm.
And like pretty much everyone here in the whole game has had something bad happen in pre-merge.
Like
And
Erica's entire winter edit was in the merge episode, and so was Gabler's. Like
yeah,
two
like
two examples.
this, and even like like obviously Jam Jam is like a little different, but like he really popped merge because he got rid of Josh. And like we see a lot of that where Rachel just got blindsided, gets to the merge, and then goes on this crazy tear.
Hmm.
And I think here we're gonna really see like who's really the contenders. Because like from this point on, if you're getting negative content, it's not looking great for you.
For sure. Well, do you have anything else to add just for this week and anything else?
No, I think well, obviously when we talk about any of these players, we do not know if they've done anything bad or anything. But I had to bring this up because I don't know. But bring back Rodney from World Apart.
Yeah, I know that who knows where all the
I
players
don't know.
are, but
I'm so scared because I don't know what he's been up to, and I'm sure it's not. But I'll never forget. He was such a good player. I'll stand on this hill. He was
I'm
a good.
doing dishes on my effing birthday.
The fact he made a secret alliance out of nowhere, incredible.
Yeah.
But bring him back. Outside of that, I don't got anything.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. Continue to vote when they add those periodically throughout the season. It's important, like everyone wants to get their voice in as fans. Only if you vote correctly, though, please. Like don't vote for the bad things. I'm just kidding.
Don't do that. Don't do it.
Yeah, but I hope we get some more interesting votes and they're not as underwhelming as like what we voted for, like with the Final Four challenge, and we get to see some more interesting gameplay stuff. Like I'm already shocked that we get to vote on fire making, so like that's enough for me at this point, But
Yeah.
it would be cool to see some more interesting votes going forward. But other than that, we'll wrap things up. We just appreciate all of you for watching. If you're on YouTube, and listening, if you're on podcast, like we just enjoy that you are here. And just to continue to be involved, like I'm always responding to comments and stuff. So if y'all want to leave any comments, feel free to do so. Like it'd be a lot of fun to just kind of start a little, community with our channel. So with that being said, go ahead and like and subscribe the video if you enjoyed it. And then we'll be back for the Mergatory next week, and I'm excited.
Me too. See ya.
See ya.